Alright, hey everybody, so welcome to my quick little video here on how to get a 5-mask run done on Stormwind. I'll be using my Death Knight again in Unholy because that's the preferred way for me to do it, because, you know, do more damage that way. Anyway, there's not much to this. It's a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, than the Orgrimmar version, mostly just because there's the Mage Quarter, which is awful. But first thing we're going to do is run up the side here, take out these two groups, and we're going to make a peek at the potion there. Kill a couple of these guys. And we know the potion is blue now, so don't pick the blue potion, and from there we just have to figure out which potion is the one that gives us 100 sanity, because that's what we really care about. Sometimes in that door over there, there's a... that door's sometimes open, and you can actually beat a mob in there for a buff, and obviously in this run it's not, but also a thing to check. Now I'll usually clear this whole area out just to get all the buffs that I need, and I'm also actually going to be opening up the mailbox, because if you go to these mailboxes, sometimes you will find a mob that will actually drop a mount for you, the Mail Muncher, but in this case I didn't find it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and mount up, and we're going to start checking the potions. We got a purple one here, which is the Sanity Potion. So now I know to keep getting the purple ones if I need sanity. The important thing with those is make sure you don't pick them when you have, you know, less than 100 sanity missing, or if you're about to fight a boss or an elite mob that will give you back the 200 sanity from having that buff unlocked, because then basically you'd be wasting it. Inside here you can get a buff from the bear. It's actually a bear plus some chairs, and I think some books. Alright, so you get a buff from that, and I'll go. I like to make my way over to the old quarter first, because that is a pretty quick one, and generally I can get through that, and if there is going to be a damage buff, it's going to be in there. See if we find it on this run or not. For the most part, I'll ignore these, killing them this time just, you know, for fun, pretty much. But you don't typically need to fight those. Don't necessarily have to kill these three either. Well, you do for the quest, but yeah, they're not hard to kill. Alright, so inside here we have the two buffs, Scorched Feet and Entom Menophilia. They're not, those are two that are fairly easy to deal with. Basically, you just have to jump to get the bugs off the screen, and other than that, you have to try not to move when you're on fire. Alright, so in that building right there was the... Sometimes there will be a bunch of mines. It's basically just a path that you have to walk. You have to walk through the center without touching any of the mines. If you get to the top, there's a mine that's green. You step on that one and you get a 10% damage boost, which is pretty big. Unfortunately, I didn't get that in this run, so I'm just going to keep on moving along. I do like to make fairly large pulls here. If you're doing this solo, it's, you know, fairly easy to do these large groups, because the mobs here don't do a whole lot of damage. If you have more than one person, though, it starts to get a little bit trickier. And again, didn't get the Mail Muncher mob here either. But yeah, large groups is obviously the preferred way to do things. But kill things. It's one of the crystal spawns over here. Not worried about those. Not really worth the time. Most of the times, they're just not going to give you that many more mementos than you would otherwise get. Alright, so this is first little mini boss here. He doesn't do a whole lot other than jump on you, and that's mostly it. When he does that, just move out of the way and then keep wailing on him. And then he dies, and you get 200 sanity back. Great. Right, so I'll have to clear the middle area as well, because it will have usually 1 or 2 bombs in the area. Also have to kill this group, because they're close enough to the bomb that you can't get at the bomb without pulling them. None of the mobs here are particularly dangerous. They all pretty much can die at in whatever order you want. Unless there's a stun, usually they all do about the same amount of damage. The one exception is the Taskmasters can do an improved morale attack that will boost everyone's damage. So if you're going to target something specifically, I would target them first, just to get them out of the way and prevent them from buffing everyone else. There's a lot of potions in the area here, so you should definitely take a look and make sure that you're getting all of the ones that matter. And then once you get the last bomb there, you just have to run over to the plunger. And then the boss will spawn right up here. He has really 2 things that you need to worry about a lot. The main thing is the bombs. He will drop 2 little TNT stacks next to himself, sometimes under him, which is what he did here, which is fairly difficult to get. You can see that when you get hit by that, you take 90 sanity damage, so that's a lot of sanity damage. The other one is the Empowered Forge Breath. If he gets that off on you, that'll also do something like 60 sanity damage, so don't get hit by that. That one's easy to sidestep, especially when you're on fire and being launched all over the place. But again, the bombs are the main thing. You can either deal with it one of 2 ways. Either you kind of put them off on the side like I did there and move away from them, or just stay in the middle and try to punt them out. But like I showed you before, sometimes punting them out is not as simple as it seems, because you just won't be able to click on them because they're underneath him. Now I will typically kill this group of things, because that eyeball does have the range to interrupt you while you're trying to open the next door. So for me as a Death Knight, I can Death Strike to get my health back off all those, and just to prevent myself from taking damage and wasting time being interrupted at the door, I'll just kill that eyeball. Alright, so the next couple modifiers here is Split Personality and the Haunting Shadows. This is one of my least favorite combinations, because it's basically making you stand still while giving you a thing that you have to move out of. So, yeah, it's a pretty rough combination, but it's doable. You just have to be paying attention. With that mini boss, try to stay out of the blade flourishes, because they'll drain your sanity, and also the cannon that she does will also typically drain a lot of sanity. So you have a lot of things to avoid, and with this combination of modifiers, it is awful. And there are 2 mob types here that really suck. One is the Inquisitors. Those are basically like the Dominators from the Orgrimmar version of this. Those will actually stun you for a channeled cast. So make sure that you're taking them out first. And then the Shadow Blades are stealth, so you usually won't see them, but they're not too much of a concern. There's really only 2 areas that, 3 areas that they pop up. I also go into this area here to get a buff as well. Oh, sorry, not the Inquisitors, the Informants. The Informants are the ones that will stun you. They use the, I think it's Touch of the Void or something along those lines. This is a pretty high damage pull right here, so if you have defensive cooldowns, that's a good spot to use them. After you kill them, this guy becomes active. Dodd. There's not much to him other than avoiding his frontal cone attacks that he'll do. And then after you beat him, you get a nice little buff. There's also usually a crystal in there as well as a chest. But here we are killing the Informer first, like I said, so he doesn't do the stun. Yep, Touch of the Abyss. That will stun you for a good period of time. The Executioners do have a good bit of damage they can do to you. So you could get them second if you like, but they usually take a bit more damage than the others. Alright, again, focusing on informants. And this is the last group you need to kill before the mini-boss. Then there's one more group. Not too complicated. So this mini-boss has two moves that he does. Basically, one is putting a ring on the ground that will drain your sanity if you stand in it when it goes off. That's Corrupted Blight. The other one is the Lurking Appendage. Basically puts a little ring of tentacles on the ground, and you see it basically trap me in the worst possible spot. It will drain some sanity, and it will silence you if you're standing in it. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential to lose a lot of sanity here if you get stuck in a bad spot like I did. Best thing to do is wait for your split personality, your haunting shadows to come up first, and then engage them. That way you have the possibility of getting them down before that stuff, but it's not a huge problem. I had a purple potion nearby anyway. And I'm killing these guys just as a check to see, I think I saw some potions over here, so just wanted to see if they were purple ones that would get some sanity back for me or not. Also, this is a somewhat quicker way out to the next area if you were to use it. So none of the potions were actually purple, so sort of a waste of time to come over here. Checking this area for pretty much anything, and of course when you get into a tight spot like that you can get stuck and have a horrible time, but no potions to help me out. Pretty much was a huge waste of time. Should have just gone to the boss at this point, but I've also got the mailbox here, so I'm going to use the mailbox, see if we get the muncher out. Now that my sanity is below 50%, I have a pretty high chance to summon one of the that was one of them. To summon one of the stupid ads that'll come out and do some damage. Yep, there he is. Just to make things a little bit more difficult. Not really a big deal. The reason I'm not in a huge hurry here is because I will typically drop an orb here, so I don't mind looking around to see if I can find any extra stuff on the way through. Because the orb, well, this is one of the harder fights for maintaining your sanity coming up, because there's the eyeballs from Shaw here that will drain your sanity if you're looking in their direction. They move around a lot, and the lower health he has, the more of them there will be. So, yeah. Now, pretty much my strategy for fighting this guy is basically just focus on looking away from the eyeballs and just backpedaling, so that Shaw will pretty much... he will come to your back most of the time, so if you walk backwards and look away from the eyes, generally you can find a happy medium where you're not looking at the eyes and at the same time you're not being hit in the back and you can actually hit him. But this is another good spot for cooldowns. Makes dealing with him, fairly easy. So if you have things like Like I have Army of the Dead and Apocalypse to pull up a bunch of ghouls to help me out. They'll basically attack without me having to do anything. The other thing to avoid is the big swirls that show up on the ground. Those will do a lot of sanity damage to you if you get hit by those as well. So just pretty much try to stay moving as much as you can when he disappears. At the same time, you still gotta watch out for the split personality and haunting shadows. And then I will typically use this portal to get back, because this will quickly get you out of the area and into the center area where you will take less sanity just by being there. So there is one unique mob over there that will give you a sanity restore if you kill him, but it takes a little bit of work to do it. Essentially, you have to have the train toy in order to beat him by yourself. If you have two players, he's pretty easy to separate from his toys, but if you're solo, the only way to do it I know of is to use the train toy to actually get him away from his toys, which I think I will be able to show off on this run through. Tormentors here are kind of a good target. You want to basically interrupt their big AoE cast that they're channeling, or it'll do a good amount of damage to you. But none of them are really all that painful. This mini-boss has really one skill to worry about, that's the Agonizing Torment. He will cast it more often than you can interrupt most of the time. And it will basically just drain sanity as it's while he's channeling it. So you're going to lose sanity on this fight, but you should generally lose less than you'll gain from beating him. And you have to usually clear most of this area. So unfortunately you can't just skip everything, which I would prefer to do, but oh well. Alright, after the tentacles are down, you can fight the boss here. He's not particularly difficult either. He's really only got one move that you need to be concerned with, but I'll come back to him. I'm going to clear out the rest of these mobs. The move he's got is called Chains of Servitude, I think. Pretty much they just silence you and draw you towards him. You can outrun them if you have any kind of speed boosting anything. Otherwise, they'll basically pull you in unless you're running away from them, and then it'll stop you in place. You can jump, but you can't attack. So it's just one of those times when if you've got, dots, put them up before he uses that. And if you've got, pet abilities or something you want to pull out, that's the time to do it before he actually casts that. Inside the bank, if it's open, you can fight the gold elemental here, who will give you a crit strike, or critical strike buff. And then there's also a mailbox out here to the left, but skipping that for now. So I'm gonna get in here, fight the slave master. There's the Chains of Servitude. He does it based on health, so once it gets down to something like 66%, he'll use it, and then again around 33%. I'm sure there's like an actual number that's, off from what I said, but that's usually about what I see him using. Alright, so once he's down, you just have to run around and open up all the cages, which is not really difficult unless you're on fire, in which case you'll be launched across the map half the time when you try to open them. So it just requires a little bit of, pre-planning and patience. You can even kind of use it to your advantage if you expect it. In this little alleyway, there's typically a arcane crystal for the collector. But then we got our last cage, as well as a male elemental, and there's a purple potion over there that I may pick up. Still no male muncher, so unfortunate, but it's the way it works. Sometimes the fire just doesn't happen. There it goes. Alright, so now time to move on to my least favorite place. I do see the toy master over there, whatever, I can't remember what his name is. I don't know, I never really care. But basically drop a train in front of his path somewhere, usually a little bit further up to be sure. And then what will typically happen is he'll stop what he's doing and he'll run over and try to smash the train. So there he is, doing a cast for a surgery for a wind-up, whatever. This is where you pull his toys as far away from him as you can and just start crushing them. If you try to fight him while his toys are up or near him, he'll heal the toys and the toys will shield him from damage. So you have to get the toys out of the picture before you can kill him, or kill him before you kill the toys. Either one of those two options works, but since you're using the toy, you just have to kill the toys first. And sometimes he gets a little bit bugged with the wind-up with the toy wrecker thing, and he'll try to find it for too long. He also will drop a toy on occasion. I think it's just a toy. It might also be a pet, but I think it's just a toy. Another one of these eyeballs. You gotta kill this, otherwise it'll hit you while you're trying to open the door. So easy to just knock this out. Then we're gonna go ahead and open up the door. And this is an area where you have to be really careful because unlike the rest of the areas, this place has a lot of tight hallways. So these two modifiers are absolutely horrible here. You also have to deal with enemies that do a lot of damage very quickly. Even standing in these red piles can do a good amount of damage to you pretty instantly. And a lot of the time you'll get stuck in one spot, like I am right now, because there's just no way to get out. And you'll have things burrowing up out of the ground at you, and you'll be slowed by the stupid red things on the ground, and you don't want to step in the puddles, and now I can't move, and I'm going to be... yeah. So like right there, nowhere to go. The good news at least is that if you get disoriented while you're inside there, at least you're going to be stuck in one spot, and you're not going to be walking back and forth through the void zones like what typically happens when you get hit by the other thing. Sometimes you can kind of cheese this a little bit and go up underneath one of those, but again, unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. So I like to go in this route because it lets me get to probably the worst part of this area, which is these portal masters and the void elementals who have one other guy with them, and the rare elite thing here. Not even rare, just the elite that's here. He's kind of like an extra mini boss. So this area has 2 mini bosses, unlike the other ones. And you can avoid this boundless corruption, but I'll usually kill him because it's usually worth doing to get more sanity back from killing him. But the tricky thing is, if you get stuck in one spot and he happens to be doing his thing that he's doing, or if you have leaden foot where you're moving really slow, you're going to end up taking a pretty good chunk of sanity damage from doing it. So give it a try a few times. Sometimes it's worth doing, sometimes it's not. Kind of up to the modifiers for the week and how well you can do on it, how quickly you can burn him. Alright, so the Portal Keeper here and the Fallen Void Speaker do basically the exact same skills, which the main one to be worried about is the Psychic Scream that they do. Also, a lot of damage can be coming out here. So this is a pretty common spot to die. So as you see, I take my free death there. Just the amount of damage that you'll get hit with there is, I don't know where it all comes from, but yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. So that's a good spot to use Magic Shell or any defensive mitigations that you have, because yeah, that spot will get you a lot of the times. And then I just walk straight up through this path and to the other mini boss, who's a little bit easier to deal with in my opinion. Some people have trouble with him. I don't typically have an issue with him. He's a little bit harder for melee, but I'll drop an orb down just so I can kind of wail on him without having to worry too much about standing in things. He does that rain of fire that does a fairly good amount of damage, or sanity damage, if you're standing in it when he casts it. He's also got a lot of guys that he's summoning. Luckily for me, Unholy Death Knights do a lot of AoE damage, so it's not that big of a concern. Now, whereas on like Orgrimmar, I can pretty much always get to the final boss with 1 or 2 spheres remaining, the sanity orbs. This one, I have the hardest time getting through with any sanity orbs remaining. So usually it's an orb, like I use my final orb before I fight the boss in this area, and then I will just take the portal back and try to kill Illyria as quickly as possible. But if you can get through this area without using 2 orbs, you're in good shape. I just have the hardest time doing it for some reason. The other thing about this area, it's pretty much the most confusing and most maze-like of all the areas. So you definitely want to, if you get the chance, take a look at the map, plan out your route. If you can make an alliance character and run around Stormwind, it's not a bad idea to do that either. Another mailbox here. But running around this in the regular world, it's laid out the same way, so you can get an idea of how your path is going to work. Just because the portals are just they're just in weird spots, and it can be very tricky and confusing. Here we are again, stuck in another one of these situations where everything's tight together and you're basically stuck waiting for something to happen. And that's really the biggest sanity drainer here for me, is just the waiting to move forward. And I will hit so I actually have an orb left at the end of this fight, so I should be able to take on Illyria with full sanity, which is good. Now this guy, kind of a pain. So he does entropic missiles here, which you typically just kind of have to eat. But if you're Death Knight, you can use Magic Shell and shrug off this polymorph that he does, because he won't actually polymorph you, so it's good. But the entropic missiles that he does do 15 sanity damage per hit, and it's usually 3 or 4 of those. So you're just going to have to take that damage, and then he'll move to the other side of the room, and then you have to run over there and not interrupt him, but just hit him so he stops doing it. And then that's basically it. If you get polymorphed, just is going to do some damage to you and slow you down, cause you to lose some sanity based on, time going by. Otherwise, not a huge deal. And now I'm back at the chapel here. It's going to kill the 2 guards in the front. The main thing with them, they function exactly the same as the guards in Orgrimmar. They will do a frontal stun, and then they have, they're not exactly the same, so 2 different skills basically. But one does a frontal attack that'll stun, the Rift Strike, and then the other one does a damage reduction, which they have on right now. It's just if you interrupt that, then they'll die quicker. Is pretty much all. If they get that off, it's not a huge deal. Getting stunned is a bigger deal, so try not to get stunned. So for this one, if you're going to put down an orb, which you should definitely put down an orb if you got one, move in closer than you'd normally be comfortable doing, because she's going to fight you pretty much straight in the middle here, and you can delay a little bit because it usually takes her a little while to actually talk and get through her RP. But main things with her is this Darkened Sky, where she'll drop a bunch of missiles out. She'll also do the bombs, which will do a ton of sanity damage and mostly cause you problems. If you let one of those blow up in the middle, you're going to have a hard time, because she always teleports back to the middle to do this thing, this Void Eruption. You can get a few hits on her while she's doing it, but make sure you're not taking any damage from it. She also does the Tainted Polymorph that you have to interrupt, and then there'll be Chains of Servitude. So again, get away from that, or if you're Death Knight, you can just kind of do your movement thing that'll stop you from being moved. Then she'll do Darkened Sky again. She'll only do 2 Tainted Polymorphs, so do your best to avoid those. Oh, and you have the eyes to deal with, so do your best not to look at the eyeballs and lose sanity. There's a lot of ways to lose sanity in this fight, a lot of AoE, a lot of things going on. The bombs again. You really just need to be aware of those and just stay calm. Beat her down. It'll take you some time, but it's not impossible. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And there you go. The hardest part about this whole run is just that mage quarter. If you can make it to that mage quarter, you're not going to have too much trouble anywhere else. And that's pretty much it. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If it was, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you have a better idea how to do things, a better way of doing stuff, maybe I missed something, go ahead and put it down in the comments and I'll take a look at it. But thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, try not to die.